Good evening, you're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. Arab-led coalition planes conduct airstrikes on locations under the control of the Houthis group and their allied forces. US-backed forces seize full control of the northern Syrian city of Manwich as 2,000 civilian hostages are freed from Daesh control. And UN Security Council votes to deploy 4,000 additional peacekeepers to south of Sudan. Those were the headlines, and now for the news in detail. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos has sent a cable of greetings to His Excellency President Mamnoon Hussain of Pakistan on his country's independence anniversary. Arab-led coalition planes conducted airstrikes on locations under the control of the Houthis group and their allied forces in the Yemeni capital Sana'a. The airstrikes targeted areas in Hejja Governorate, which led to the destruction of the Houthis' military vehicles and a radar station. On the other hand, some other 7 airstrikes also targeted locations of the fighters in Ta'ez, south of Sana'a. The UN says that more than 6,400 people, mostly civilians, have been killed in Yemen since the coalition air campaign began in March last year. US-backed forces have seized full control of the northern Syrian city of Manbij near the Turkish border after the last remaining Daesh fighters had been using civilians as human shields left. Syria Democratic Forces, an alliance of Kurdish and Arab forces, are now sweeping the city. Roughly 100 Daesh fighters were left in the city center using civilians as human shields, some of whom were killed trying to flee. Around 500 cars had left Manbij carrying the militants and around 2,000 civilians. They were heading northeast towards Jarablus, a town under their control on the Turkish border. At least some of the civilians were later released or escaped, but the whereabouts of the rest was unknown. The Daesh has booby-trapped cars and carried out suicide bombings to slow advances by their opponents. Russia has deployed its advanced S-400 air defense missile system to annexed Crimea. Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev said Russia could break diplomatic ties with Ukraine over reported security incidents in Crimea, something it didn't even do after annexing Crimea or throwing its support behind separatist rebels in the east. Medvedev said that he wouldn't like the ties to be severed, but if there is no other way to change the situation, the president could take this step. Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine in March 2014, following a hastily called referendum, and a conflict between Russia-backed separatists and Ukrainian forces flared up in eastern Ukraine weeks later. Despite that and the conflict in the east, which has killed more than 9,500 people, Kiev and Moscow didn't break diplomatic ties. South Sudan is softening its rejection of a regional protection force a day after the UN Security Council voted to deploy 4,000 additional peacekeepers. But a government spokesman said it will accept the force only if it can negotiate the size, mandate, weapons, and contributing countries. A presidential spokesman said today that the door is open, but would not say whether South Sudan has dropped its objection to the force answering to the existing UN peacekeeping mission. He also said neighboring Uganda, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Kenya cannot take part. An outbreak of fighting in the capital Juba saw civilians, aid workers, and UN staffers come under attack. South Sudan government officials have been vague about how they will respond if the new protection force enters uninvited. Still to come in our news bulletin. In Kenya, GPS collars are used to record a lion's exact location and store readings at regular intervals.
هنا الرائحة العالقة بالذاكرة. تأخذنا دهشة مختلفة لتبهرنا بجمالها الآسر، حيث ملتقى الأسرة. امنح نفسك شغف التجربة، فهنا حكاية الجمال لا تنتهي. مهرجان صلالة السياحي 2016 من 15 من يوليو إلى 31 من أغسطس. عمان، المحبة والوئام.
Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. The buying of non-Omani investors increased last week at Muscat Securities market as to reach 3.3 million Omani riyals against sales of 2.1 million Omani riyals. Gulf and foreign financial establishments enhanced their investment portfolios at MSM as buying of Gulf investment establishments acquired 12% of trading, while foreign investment establishments acquired 10%. The main index of the market increased last week by 27 points, closing at 5,896 points. The Board of Directors of Export Credit Guarantee Agency approved 8 million Omani riyals worth of credits, including 4 million riyals for local sales and another 4 million riyals for Omani non-oil exports. The board also approved minutes of the previous meeting and followed up the implementation of decisions. It also discussed several issues related to guaranteeing exports and the performance of the agency. The Omani Cave Exploration Team discovered a new geological cave in the Niaba of Jabal al-Akthar in the Governorate of Dakhiliya. The team surveyed the dimensions of the cave, calculated its size, and determined its roots and geological phenomenon. The cave was called As-Saqf, and it is 100 meters long. No ropes are needed to go down inside the cave, but some of its parts require to crawl due to its height that does not exceed 40 centimeters. The internal end of the cave is very beautiful as it contains a number of geological formations and rocky crevices. This discovery is a new addition to the list of caves recently discovered by the team. A workshop was organized in the Walaya of Rostak by the Ministry of Sports Affairs on applied electronics. The event was part of Shababi program targeting a number of Omani youths to instill on them the values of research and innovation. It also aimed to connect the participants with technology and acquaint them with the basics of electronics and programming. The workshop included theoretical and practical activities. A number of governorates of the Sultanate witnessed rains with various intensity, which led some wadis and their tributaries to overflow. The governorates of North and South Sharqiya witnessed moderate to light rains in a number of wilayas, including Dama wa Ta'in, Mudaybi, Ibra, Al-Qabil and others. Meanwhile, some areas of the governorate of Dhahra witnessed moderate to heavy rainfall, which led some wadis to overflow. In the governorate of Dakhiliya, the rain fell on the wilayas of Nizwa, Bahla, Iski and Al-Hamra. In Ol Pejeta Reserve in Kenya, lions can be seen sporting a new accessory. Local lions are being collared with GPS trackers that enable conservationists to locate and collect data about their prides. More details in the following report.
After 2 days of searching in Kenya's Ol Pejeta Reserve, finally, they find her. Loading their gun with anesthetic, these vets are careful to make sure it's a sleeping lion they're dealing with. The point of all this? To collar her with a GPS tracker, something that will help collect data about this lioness that, in turn, will help them protect their local prides.
We're taking blood for genetic and disease studies, which, as we understand what's happening to the population, if there is any disease challenge. So we periodically collect blood from our different patients so that to keep track of disease.
GPS collars are used to record a lion's exact location and store readings at regular intervals. This information is sent by satellite to a server which can be downloaded by scientists and conservationists. It was a GPS collar that helped researchers realize that Cecil the lion was killed by illegal hunters in Zimbabwe last year.
The reason as to do that is to keep track of the animal movement, to see how the prides merge with others and how they break up, and at the same time generate good data for action management of the animal population itself.
Even though they're not on the brink of extinction, lions remain a threatened species. Health checks like these help, but conflict with humans and the destruction of their natural habitat has caused Kenya's lion population to fall by 100 every year. And it's not just happening in Kenya. Across the continent, the number of lions has dropped by an estimated 95% in the last 70 years. It's hoped these GPS trackers will do their bit to protect Africa's prides, helping this lion wake up to a safer and more secure Africa.
And now for the general weather forecast around the Sultanate. Cloudy skies will prevail over the coastal areas of the Governorate of Dhofar and its nearby mountains, with intermittent drizzle and scattered rainfall on some areas. Rest of the Sultanate will have partly cloudy skies with scattered rain over Hajar Mountains. Winds will be easterly to northeasterly light to moderate over the coasts of Sea of Oman, while on the coastal areas of the Arabian Sea, it will be southwesterly moderate to active. Seas will be rough along the coasts of the Arabian Sea with a maximum wave height of 4.5 meters and slight along the rest of the coasts with a maximum wave height of 1.25 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. Arab-led coalition planes conduct airstrikes on locations under the control of the Houthis group and their allied forces. US-backed forces seize full control of the northern Syrian city of Manwich as 2,000 civilian hostages are freed from Daesh control. And UN Security Council votes to deploy 4,000 additional peacekeepers to south of Sudan. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, it's good night.